Welcome to the Brand New Show podcast, episode 26.
Brand new, 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 brand new,
Hi, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Brand New Show. It's me, your host, Neil Humphrey, the brand Gladiator, ready to stuff your ears full of inspirational awesomeness once again. So this week we have a brand new guest in the form of Siam Kid from The Realistic Trader, a rather intelligent and astute young chap for reasons which will become clear. It's one of these kind of things that financial intelligence somehow seems to be doesn't have the same level of respect that it really should in our educational systems, and Siam is on a mission to change that. He has a fascinating story. He's achieved an awful lot in a short space of time, and recently he did it. Well, actually, in the course of the conversation, he cites Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad as a book that everybody should read. And so, in the spirit of it, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get hold of a copy of that book. If you listen through to the end, you'll find out how you can do that. If you missed last week's episode, listen to this one first, then go back and listen to last week's episode. It's a good one. Also, if you have any feedback, remember it's podcast at thebrandgladiator.co.uk. I'm going to... and please do take time to write a review on iTunes. It's always appreciated. Right, that's it for me. I'm pleased to introduce my guest, Siam Kid. I'm going to stop talking now and hand you over to myself, I suppose. Bye. Okay, hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me. My guest today is Siam Kid from The Realistic Trader. Are you with me, Siam? Are you there? Can you hear me?
Hi, Neil.
Hi, great.
Thank you.
Fantastic to have you on board and on the call. I'm really kind of quite excited and honoured to have you as a guest. Siam's quite an interesting character. He's only young, bless him. Now that's the last time I do anything about age because I got on a right mess with Colin Bradford the other day. But you have in a relatively actually not relatively at all, in a short space of time, you've made a real dent in the world. Your early career, as I understand, you worked you were a pilot in the RAF, which is already something that kind of like a schoolboy dream by the sound of it. And you've been trading on the stock markets and in forex. Oh no, it's not forex. I'm sure you can tell me more about it. Since you were 18, that's some pretty impressive credentials. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your story? When did you first realise that you might want to be an entrepreneur, Sam?
It was actually rather late. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which everyone needs to read. But I read it when I was about 18. I sort of skim-read it and didn't really understand it or take much knowledge, heedance of it, as it were. And then I reread it again when I was about 24, 25, and then went, oh, bugger. I need to get out of the employment world. And very quickly exited the Air Force and forfeited all sorts of pension rights, etc. I'm sort of an accidental business owner.
Okay, I see. I'm really glad you mentioned the Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's. Well, it's not a business parable as such because it's a very powerful message and something that I wish, having read that in my 40s, I just wish that somebody had made me read it at 17, 18. Was it something that you came across? Were you made to read it when you saw it first?
Just a wise friend said I need to read the book, but I was so busy going through Air Force training that I didn't really have time for it. But since then, I should be a salesperson for Kiyosaki because I always have at least 20 Rich Dad Poor Dad books in my closet, and I give them away to everyone that really enters the house. But yeah,
I was like, Merry Christmas. Oh, I've already got one, thank you. That's really good because I think that whole idea of kind of sharing that kind of knowledge, because I'm forever making book recommendations to people and they write them down and you know that they're going to go, yeah, oh wow, yeah, it sounds really interesting, but they never do anything with it. But I think that gift of knowledge and I suppose it's kind of in the first instance a lot of time. You said that you read it and then you read it again. Did you feel that maybe initially that you didn't quite get it, or?
Yeah, exactly. I just wasn't in the right time or place. I was too fixated with or passing my sort of Air Force tests, etc. But I very soon, I'm naturally quite lazy, so I thought, how can I make money in bed on my laptop in my underwear? And there's not many options, and so online gambling came up and trading came up, and this was when I was about 18, and so I tried the online gambling route, online roulette, and I very quickly made. I thought I came up with a system,
Okay.
as everyone does, and I thought, if I just bet on black every single time and double up every time I lose, I'm obviously going to win. And I now know it's called the Martingale system. And I quickly made about 3 grand, which for an 18-year-old was a lot of money.
I'll say.
And I remember telling all my friends, I was like, oh, come on. And they all came into my room and I showed them. And I turned that sort of, I think, 3 grand into 4.5 grand very quickly. And then I lost everything within seconds. And it was horrible. And then everyone sort of disappeared as I was squeezing the mouse. And yeah, I think later that night I made some horrible choices. I ended up, yeah, so I lost all of the profit I made, and then I maxed out my credit card. So yeah, so it was 5 grand down overnight.
Wow.
So and, yeah, I know it was horrible. And since then, I'm now the most risk averse person around. I haven't gambled since.
Okay, so you kind of like you learnt your lesson pretty early, and I know that some friends who have a real issue with gambling, sort of in the broadest sense, and I've never really, I'll be honest, I've never really. I'm a creative. I'm a big
Yeah.
ideas person, and this thing about kind of you see the news stories of the stock market traders and the Hooray Henrys and the Barra Boys I for a while worked in the city of London I used to run a steakhouse and wine bar, and so my
Did you
customers,
really?
yeah, down in Davies of London, down in the basement of the World Trade Centre in London, and then latterly kind of near London Bridge, and our audience were the kind of like the platinum American Express card expenses, lunches, and it's all very,
Yeah.
very kind of obnoxious. But I suppose the thing is that maybe that's kind of tempered my view of it. But would you say, because like somebody who doesn't really know anything about trading, is it akin to gambling, or is there something much more
No,
scientific and mathematical about it?
not at all. It's there is a very fine line between trading and gambling, but the key thing is that you need the right education, information, and training. And so many people take the Rambo machine gunner approach. They're like spraying and praying and literally throwing as much mud at the wall, hoping some of it sticks. Whereas with trading, you need to be a sniper. So snipers lay in wait, they're very highly trained, and when they pull that trigger, you know that the round is going to hit the target straight between the eyes. So, and the trading needs to be like that. Now, the reason I get so frustrated when people say, oh, you're just a gambler, is, or one, people fear what they don't understand. And because hardly anyone really understands trading, that's why there's so many horror stories. And 96% of retail traders, so private traders like you or I, lose money consistently on a daily basis. And that's why there are so many horror stories. In fact, I was the biggest horror story ever when I first started trading. But there are ways to get into trades which are completely risk free. And also it's all about risk management, and also your risk to reward ratio. So long story short, I don't want to bore you. I can lose 14 trades out of 15 and still be in profit.
Right.
So I can lose about 93.5% of the time and still be in profit. So how is that gambling?
Oh, I see. So, what obviously trading? I mean, what are you trading? Are there different sorts of things that people trade? I mean, we're not necessarily, because there's a lot of talk about forex, and there's that foreign exchange. But do you trade in commodities? Do you trade in stocks?
I'm a currencies and commodities trader.
Okay.
So yeah, currencies, forex, FX, foreign exchange. So, but I do not touch the stock market with a barge pole. The main reason being is that the systematic risk within the stock market right now is 65% higher than it was in 2007, and the stock market is actually called the dumb market. because people think that the only market you can trade in is the stock market, because it's all that we see in the papers and the news, etc. And it's really just a sort of a dangling light, in fact, that sort of distracts people. And yeah, so you don't want to be the dumb money within the dumb market, and we're pretty close to a large correction. So I made a 1-hour documentary in 2013, I believe, or 2012, and I called it "How to Profit from the Crash of 2016." And everything I said in that video, which needs to happen before we do have a big correction, has already happened. So I'm personally expecting another stock market crash on the scale of 2008 within the next sort of 18 months.
Wow, that's because I think one of the reasons why I kind of hold you in such high regard is you're almost kind of like prescience, I guess you could say, that you do have this kind of financial knowledge and an understanding of the financial markets that belies your age, I think. As a middle-aged idiot duffer who knows bugger all.
How old do you think I am?
I have no idea. I was like 12 or something.
Close.
But I mean, no, but you are. You're kind of like you're in your 20s at your prime. But you have this kind of this outlook and this kind of this wise and. I'm just going to blow smoke up your backside, but is that something? Are you incredibly well read, incredibly well educated? Do you have your own kind of rich dad, poor dad in the background? Where's it all come from?
No, not at all. I'm actually very, I'm not stupid, but I was awful at school. I spent my whole time at school with teachers saying, "Oh, be realistic, Siam. What do you want to do when you grow up?" Because everyone knew that I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. And I got 2 Ds for my A levels. So, and in terms of qualifications with the financial world, I have none, and I'm quite proud of it. Because I've got such a simple brain, I have to take things and really break it down into its constituent parts and turn it into 6-year-old language so I can understand it. And because I break things down into basic English without any jargon, because there's no need for that. It just makes things a lot easier to understand and also to explain. And so in the early days, I used to spend a good 5 hours a day just Googling and YouTubing pretty much everything. Now, there is a lot of dross on the internet, so you do need to have a good BS detector so you know what's rubbish. But it's not too hard to, after a while, you'll soon get a good detector, and then I basically followed probably about 10 or 12 people which I personally respected and who are always ahead of the curve. So a lot of them are billionaires, people like George Soros, Peter Schiff, Jim Rogers, Kiyosaki, Mark Faber, etc. And these are the people that predicted and profited from the 1987 crash, 2001 tech bubble crash, the 2008 subprime mortgage collapse, and loads of other things. And so when you see papers that, the 2008 crash came out of nowhere, it's absolute bollocks. There are people screaming off the rooftops about it. And so for a long time, I've just been following the breadcrumbs that they've been leaving behind. And as a result, I've now I don't really follow them anymore. I tend to I used to sort of come up with my own analysis and then touch base with them to see if I was along the right tracks. And I have been for a while. So to be honest, I don't have a clue what they're up to at the moment. But
the student has become the master.
Not at all.
So you've obviously so basically you could blame it self-effacingly on your simple brain that you've managed to excel in trading now. You have you went back into trading. So you left the military, left the RAF. You started back in trading, and then you had a brief dalliance in bullion trading, didn't you? And then you now kind of come back, and I guess it was that thing about people saw your success and saw how you were doing and said, can you show me how to replicate that? And so I understand this kind of this teaching aspect came out by accident.
Yeah, it's really odd because after I left the Air Force, I was even though I wanted to trade full time, I was still fixated with flying. I just wanted to fly. So I stupidly wasted about 60 or 70 grand getting my commercial helicopters license.
As you do.
Yeah, because your military qualifications mean bugger all on Civvy Street. So, but I did all the exams, and once I got the piece of paper saying, I'd passed, it was around the time I reread Rich Dad Poor Dad. I realized, shit, I don't want to have a job, or I don't want to work for anyone. And so, this was back when I was 25. So yeah, 4 years ago, and there was a 6-month period where Ellie, my fiance at the time, well, she's a keeper, by the way, but we were stone broke. Now, I don't know if you've ever been poor, but it's horrible. Obviously not sort of shanty hut poor, but we were, for about a 6-month period, we were living off 17 pence spaghetti hoops from Asda. And I remember this one day, I'll never forget it. We were in Lidl, and Ellie came up to me in the aisle with cheese in one hand and mayonnaise in the other, and shrugged, and I knew exactly what she meant. Basically, we were struggling to decide whether to buy cheese or mayonnaise because we couldn't afford both. And in the end, we just end up putting it back on the shelf and just end up buying more pasta or rice, because you can get a whole lot of food for your money with pasta and rice. It's Marmite pasta, great. It's like a 5 pence meal.
Wow.
So it was like a massive knife in the gut for me, because I was supposed to be looking after her, and there we were scrounging around for food, didn't have hot water, and it was shit. Sorry, my language. It was just horrible. And so we went back home, and I came up with a plan, and I said, right, I promise you, we will never have to work ever again within 5 years. And at the time, I don't think she believed it, and I don't think I really believed it, because we were struggling to eat, let alone semi-retire by the time I was 30. And but within a few months, I knew that we were going to hit it, and it's all due to goal setting. I'm a massive goal setting advocate, because if you do have your pie in the sky dreams, goals, or aspirations, you need to get them out of your head. You need to write them down, and more importantly, put them on a board in your office, in your bedroom, so they're always staring at you. But more importantly, you need to put the realistic mini steps in place in order to achieve that. So the reason I knew that we were definitely going to semi-retire within 5 years from that point is because I had my mini steps. So, and you need to go right down into the weeds, into your yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and your daily targets, and also habits, because it's habits which get shit done. And so the reason I knew is because I was absolutely nailing my daily, weekly, and monthly targets, which meant that my big, crazy goal was getting ever closer. But if you're ever missing your mini targets, you know that big old goal is going to be that carrot which you, at the end of the stick, which you never get to. So, sorry, I've just gone off on...
Well, no, amen to that. Amen to that. And
Yeah,
if you're listening to this, by the way, and you haven't heard the conversation I had with... Well, this is not you I'm talking to anybody who's listening to this. There might be somebody else listening. I don't know. But listen to the interview with Ash Taylor. Because that's obviously a topic that comes up time and time again. You're spot on, because I really appreciate you kind of sharing that story about the kind of like the having to kind of like endure that crushing low, because I kind of like had this picture of you as this kind of young playboy with your kind of your fighter pilot background, and you're driving your Aston Martins and what have you. And although
I used to have that life. That was when I was 23.
And I mean, you say you're lazy in your very nature, but I've always got the impression from kind of like our social media interactions that incredibly hardworking, and I guess that kind of like drive and desire and ambition comes from having clearly defined goals and kind of like breaking them down to a micro level.
There's a saying which has stuck with me for a long time, is that you need to be prepared to live like most won't, so you can live like most can't. And so, I am lazy. So the reason is because I don't want to work. I don't want to have to work from the age of 30 onwards. I want to just be able to do whatever I want, whenever, wherever, with whoever. I've been, but it sort of backfired, because I've been doing sort of 12, 15 hour days every day for the last 4 years or so. And now that I'm sort of financial, or I am financially independent now, I'm finding it hard to wean off the hours. So a few weeks ago, I promised to my friends and family that, right, I'll only do 40-hour weeks now, but I can't.
So tell me something, Sam, because I really, proper hats off to that, because I saw your post on Facebook and said that you'd done it, and it was just like mind-boggling that the fact that you'd kind of set out to do that and that had happened. But you're still incredibly hardworking, and you do work these long hours, and it's that kind of question. I think I saw. I don't know whether you read much on Quora, whatever it's called, the kind of question and answer website. But there was this question I just saw this morning. It says, "What do people who make millions? What do they do if they've already got that stuff? And I get the impression that some of them they are totally addicted to creating wealth. And in terms of your kind of like the long hours you're working, I mean, what is it that you find yourself doing? Is it something that you would find it really hard to sit down and twiddle your thumbs? Now that you've reached this kind of financial independence goal, are you going to set up a charitable foundation? What's next for you?
It's been really surprising. So when I started out, obviously money was like the biggest goal and driver, just because I had none. And very quickly I realized that money should not be your end. It's just a means to an end. The real wealth out there is time, because it's the only thing you can't get back. And time gives you options, basically, freedom. It's time freedom. You can do whatever you want. And more importantly, what I assume sort of along the line, I realized that, wow, I've got completely the wrong goal. Because if money is always your target, you'll spend your life chasing it and never really getting fulfilled. Because I know quite a lot of middle-aged men in London who have had, their goal of, I want to be a multimillionaire, and they've achieved it. But they're the most depressed people I know, because they've finally got to their target and then gone, oh, now what? And then they're completely empty. So whatever you really need a strong why, and that why, that drive, it needs to really align with your core values and sort of principles. So the big goal for me is I want to change every school in the UK. I want to spark a UK education revolution, and that's my big driver. But obviously I need to sort myself out first, so before I can do anything, which is why so the money, now that's aside, I'm now focusing on really driving towards that goal. Now it will probably take me the whole of my life, or I may never get there, but what I have found is that if you set up a free school, you can, as long as you teach maths, English and the sciences, you can teach any subject you want. So what I want to do within the next few years is create my own school, and I'll teach the standard. I jump through the hoops that I have to, but I'm going to teach financial education, because it's one of the most important life skills you can have. Real business studies, not from a textbook taught by a teacher that's never run a business. It's better off giving the kids, here's $2,000, go and set up your own business, and then watch them fail. They're going to learn a whole lot more that way. I'll teach them trading, investing, Mandarin, because the world's wealth is moving from the west to the east, coding and robotics, because we're well into the information age right now. And also what I'll do is I'll create this currency system within the school and make it as realistic as possible. So if a student can become a millionaire within the schooling system, when they leave my school at the age of 18, they'll be like, oh, okay, I did it in school. Well, I'll just do it with pounds instead of Siam pounds. And I'm going to make the school so that it 100% sets them up for life. Because at the moment, schools just drive people towards the employment sector and how to get a job, and it's lacking quite a bit. But and I won't even have age groups, because the current system constantly sort of judges. It's like judging a fish on its ability to climb a tree, when in fact we all learn and think differently, visually, auditory, and kinesthetically, etc. So instead of year groups, I'll have ability groups, and I'm not going to hold people back. If a 12-year-old can complete all the exams, etc., then great, go to uni, leave. But Sorry, again, I'm rambling.
Well,
I'm
no,
terrible.
this is absolutely. I'm sitting here kind of in kind of slack-jawed admiration because it's so
Oh, no.
inspiring to hear people who have this kind of clarity of vision and able to map out something that appears so altruistic. And the conversation I had last week with Adam Cara, he always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was his lifelong ambition. He was kind of like entrepreneurial at school.
Yeah.
He succeeded in school as well as on the sports field, and that was always his goal. And he's kind of moved into kind of like the training arena, and he does this notion of kind of like legacy and having something to making your mark on the world, and actually leaving something for the next generation. And I guess the kind of that desire to kind of transform the education system is very noble, and it's something that I can understand how people get behind. Um, is that has that come out of your own frustration with your own education? Um, do you feel that? I mean, for me, it always strikes me that this whole thing about why on earth aren't they teaching these skills in schools? Because I just remember leaving school thinking, now what? And you have
Exactly.
to learn a whole other set of skills. I mean, even the rudimentary stuff like how to pay your council tax and all that kind of garbage. And why isn't Rich Dad Poor Dad a required reading for everybody, not just the
Yeah,
people who have financially savvy parents or influences?
yeah, uh, it's because the schooling system was derived from the Industrial Revolution. So the whole schooling system is designed to send as many people into the factories. And in fact, we're even like that's why we have year groups, just like date of manufacture, basically. And yeah, so it's basically stemmed from there. It hasn't really changed. It's like a huge, massive oil tanker, and in order to change direction or do a complete 180, it takes a long, long time. So. But yeah, and obviously it wouldn't really. I mean, yeah, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but
I can hear you like, banging your fist against the table there almost. Just kind of talking about revolution. I mean, it may kind of bring it up into kind of like right now, because obviously people might pick this up at different times. It's not necessarily being broadcast live, but today is the day that. Britain goes to the polls, and we have an opportunity to choose a new government. And there's this kind of like it does appear on the face of it to be a kind of like the lesser of three or four evils, or weevils in the case of Nigel Farage. But it's that kind of idea that it's kind of affecting change and revolution. I use the word loosely. We have this ability to vote to change it because it is a democracy. Do you think that this idea that there's actually a bit of a disparity between the true sense of democracy and the fact that there are people out there who make a lot of money who are, controlling us like puppets?
it's I am completely non-political. The main reason being is because I know how the world financial system works, how money works, and how money velocity works. Once you know that, you soon realize that although some politicians may start out with good intentions and a good heart, even if they get into office, they're powerless because it's the banks that control the world, the central banks. And so, yeah, it really makes no difference. And I actually feel sorry for whoever wins this next election because the shit, as in the financial crap, is actually going to hit the fan. And so it's going to land on this watch. And it's absolutely farcical when they say by the year 2020, we're going to completely get rid of the deficit. And that is absolute poppycock. Now, to put that into perspective, the UK is now £1.5 trillion in debt. So if you earned £1 million from the day baby Jesus was born until now, you'd need to live another 1,300 years before you even hit the £1 trillion mark. You can never repay it back. In fact, UK debt increases £450 million per day. So they can never get rid of the deficit. They can never repay the debt. And that's mainly because there's 96% more debt on the planet than actual money. No debt, none of the debt can actually be repaid back. It's a mathematical fact. And even though the politicians are all saying all sorts of stuff, because we live in a world of debt, with debt comes interest. So interest rates dictate the world. And the market which dictates interest rates is the bond market. So this is one of the reasons why I'm causing a bit of outrage at the moment, is because I'm also foreseeing at least a 20% UK house price crash within the next 5 years. And the main reason for that is because UK rates can only go up. So at the moment, imagine our UK debt like a credit card debt. The UK government is struggling to repay the minimum interest repayments of our national debt. And so the moment the bond market realizes that, oh, wow, the UK is struggling or cannot pay its debts, watch interest rates go up, because all of a sudden we'll be seen as a liability. And so even people say, oh, the government and the Bank of England will never let rates go up because it'll kill the nation. Oh, yes, it will. But we are tiny, tiny pawns in the global bond market, which is one of the biggest markets out there. It's double the size of the stock market. And so rates will go up and it'll hurt a lot of people. Now, if you're an investor, if you're a trader, this is actually good news, because times of calamity is the easiest and the quickest time that you can make money. It's ridiculous. But the reason I'm so worried about all my friends on Facebook is because at the moment I'm seeing pretty much on a daily basis, woohoo, I've just got my keys to my first house because I've just got a 95% mortgage or whatnot. Now, what people don't realize is that like if you're on say a 200 grand mortgage on a standard variable rate mortgage, i.e. a tracker mortgage, every percent UK rates go up, your mortgage goes up £120 a month. Now, the 300-year average for rates is 7%. And people completely forget that we're at 300-year lows for interest rates. We're pretty much 0%. And house prices are 300-year highs. It's the worst time ever to buy a house. And so let's say rates do go up. Now, it doesn't even need to go up 7%. Let's say it goes up 3%. So let's say it does go up that by 3%. You'll have to pay an extra £360 per month just to keep your house. People can't afford an extra £60 a month, let alone an extra $360. So we're going to see a wave of foreclosures, which will then apply a massive negative pressure on house prices.
Well, your kind of your words of wisdom on that is one of the reasons why I sold up. I mean, we were looking to move anyway, and it was that kind of realization that because my wife and I, we both work for ourselves, it's that kind of thing that you do get stuck into that vicious. I don't know whether it's a cultural thing in the UK. It's a fallout from the several. In my childhood, the kind of Thatcher years, this owning a property was the kind of pinnacle of success. And I think this is the clear distinction. If you parallel that with the outlook, or rather the teachings of Kiyosaki, that rather than seeing the kind of poor dad, we must work towards having a house. That is our. Now correct me if I'm wrong. So we see our house as being an asset, but in actual fact, the smart money knows that your house becomes a liability, isn't it? Is that the right way around?
Yes, or it depends. I mean, there's no correct answer.
Oh, great.
I mean, there isn't. That's just his take. I mean, if you have rental properties that spin off rental income and it's more than your mortgage and it covers all outgoings for that house, then it's an asset. Also, this is one of my personal beliefs. If you have a house mortgage free, completely paid off, then I put it in the asset box.
Right.
But typically speaking, if you're going to be really sort of nitpicky, even if you have a house mortgage free, it's still a liability, because a liability is basically anything that takes money out of your pocket every month or every year. And a house, I mean, just try not paying your council tax for a few months, see what happens. So yeah, and you've always got your outgoings like utilities and stuff like that. So
what you need is some kind of free state. There's space in Norfolk, isn't there, where you are? Are you going to actually make the state of Siam?
No, not at all. No.
Oh no, they've tried that. It's Salon now, isn't it? Oh dear, that's a bit of a historical geography joke there. So wow, it's been absolutely fascinating hearing what you have to say, and I have no doubt that I made the right decision getting on you here and giving you a little bit of a soapbox or a mouthpiece, because this is stuff that people need to know. And it's not that kind of, well, there might be, you're not doing it fear mongering. You want people to know, because I think that's the thing when you have people who kind of talk about, it's not right, it's going to go wrong, and it's this is how you can be armed, and it's a bit like when you're talking about your friends on Facebook. I had this picture of the kind of, what was it, is it the ant and the grasshopper or something? Is that Fable?
Sure.
Is it? I thought it was ants. Yeah, because the grasshopper was sitting there going, yeah, it's summertime, let's chill out. And the ants are beavering away. But I guess, do you see? It's going to get worse before it gets better. With your kind of long-term vision, can you see a good outcome at any point? What would a good outcome be? Is it possible?
Yes, In 10 years' time plus, I think the world is going to be a phenomenal place. And the future is more abundant than you think due to technology. And there's some technologies coming out at the moment and materials which are going to change everyone's lives, like graphene and silicene, etc. But for the next 10 years, or probably for the next 7 years, expect a whole world of pain. There's so much. In 2007... think nothing has changed since then. All they've done is kick the can down the road, brushed everything under the carpet, and there's going to be a big correction. So, and also oil is a big thing, because we live. Over the last 50 years, we've lived in an economy or a world where everything just grows, and yes. There's two reasons for that. One, the currency supply has been in exponential growth since then, and it just flows into the stock market and the property market, which is why people think it always goes up when it doesn't, because price and value are completely different. But also, it's because we've had the oil revolution, basically. But in fact, this is opening a whole can of worms. Long story short, the oil is peaking right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds like peak oil that I read about for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and that's just like, I'm just going to stick my head under the duvet. I don't want to know about that. And I can sense from what I know, I can sense that that's easy, quite literally a can of oil covered worms there. But I think we should just draw a line under there, because
definitely.
It is, as I said, it's been fascinating talking to you, and thank you for you say rambling, but kind of orating so eloquently. If you really you need to have a bit of Siam's knowledge in your life, ladies and gentlemen. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you on the interwebs, young man? Not young man at all, wise man.
Trader.
The Realistic Trader.
TheRealisticTrader.com. Hello?
Yep. TheRealisticTrader.com.
Oh, sorry. That's where I live.
Okay, and because obviously you do have workshops and things that you run locally. Are you planning to take your kind of Realistic Trader school on the road at all, and go around and do kind of like country-wide tours?
No, that's how I did. I started off doing that, but now every workshop is held at my home in Norfolk. Centre of the universe. Yeah,
absolutely. So. Well, it's the future centre of the universe. Excellent. Well, it's been a real privilege chatting to you. I think I feel more intelligent and certainly more financially aware than I did half an hour ago. I'm now off to go and exercise my democratic rights. That's the thing. It's just like, you might feel that your vote counts for nothing, but at least we have a vote. And so I'm going to go do that. Next week, we have Chris Marr from the Content Marketing Academy. But for now, I'd say thank you very much to Siam Kidd. Say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'll be back again next week. Out of here. Bye now. Well, there we have it. Another episode of the brand new show is done for another week. Thank you for joining me. If you would like to get hold of a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad by Richard Kiyosaki, I've got one here that you can have. So, the first person to drop me an email, podcast@thebrandgladiator.co.uk, with a really good reason why you should have a copy of this book. Well worth reading. You get it, it's yours, courtesy of the Brand New Show. I'm back again in 7 days' time with a brand new episode of the Brand New Show. Please do join me again. That's it for now.